Today I want to discuss how you can use dual diffuse. Now, what a dual diffuse is it's a conjunction of both two different diffuse maps working together to create an effect. And a lot of the time where you're going to find this useful is when you're trying to multiply your AO map, which is where the ambient occlusion is taking place on a model, onto something that's tiling. Now, how we usually do an ambient occlusion map when it comes to smaller props is you're able to just bake that ambient occlusion onto the object, and then you just multiply it down in Photoshop or some other similar type of program. Now, that works great up until the point in which you need to actually have that textured tile. And if you have a color map that needs to tile, like say brickwork or rock patterns or something along those lines, and you still want to retain the ambient occlusion, the problem is that that tile can't tile underneath the ambient occlusion because that will tile with the color map. So this is a quick and fast way that you can actually still retain that ambient occlusion power that you end up having from the map, as well as getting a good tiling diffuse. And you're going to see how this kind of works. Now, if you look right here, I don't have the ambient occlusion map applied, but my biggest problem is that this texture, right, it looks okay on an object that's maybe this size. However, as soon as we end up, blowing it up, oh wow, that's something else there. That doesn't look like a good model one bit. So we need to tile this thing. So let's set up our tiling first. And I'm just going to do this straight in the material. And the easiest way to set up a tile is we come in here and we're going to get a texture coordinate. So I'm going to hold down U on the keyboard. Go ahead and press that. That gives us a basic texture coordinate. I'm going to multiply that texture coordinate and hold down M and just click. That'll create a multiply node. And I'm going to give it a scalar value that I'm going to multiply it by so I can change this in real time. And we're going to call this UV tile. Give it a default value of 1 and set that up with the multiply. Plug those two in. And we're going to plug this into our texture just for the color, because the normal map is actually uniquely laid out. And that's really what this comes down to, is you have an object that tiles in every direction, but then you have maps that can't tile in every direction because they're unique. And this is uniquely laid out to this object. However, I want this to go across the whole object, and right now it's doing that. It's working well, except that when it's blown up, it doesn't work too well. So what we're going to do now is take this, go ahead and save it. It's been compiled. Come in here, and let's just make a material instance of it so we can see it happening in real time. And we'll call it an MIC dual diffuse test. I know, amazing. All right. So shove that window over to the left, dump that onto the giant rock, and nothing's changed yet until we click on this UV tile and times it by 5. Wow, look at that. See, that's instantly looking a lot better, because now if I'm a little player and I walk up to this thing, it has roughly about the same, texel density as this object. Well, this object's kind of crappy, but you get what I'm saying. So what we're going to do, bring the material back up. However, if we had our ambient occlusion baked, that'd be going across the whole surface as well. So we can't bake the diffuse like that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to give it an ambient occlusion map that is independent of the tiling. So I'm just going to bring up my content browser, Control-Shift-F, go in here to the texture, and what this is here is it's a straight ambient occlusion map that I just baked out of Maya or Max, whatever program you use. So you can take that, bring it in here, and we're going to hold down T, add it in. So now it's here in the texture sample, and prepare yourself. You're going to be amazed how simple this is, but we are only going to hit M on the keyboard for a multiply node, and we're going to plug those two in. Wait for it. Wait for it. Bam. Alright, and of course I know you want to see the fireworks, and here they are. Ambient occlusion now has been applied to our object, but the benefit is we can still change the tile independently and have the ambient occlusion map just stay where it is, because we only want that in the recesses of the object. And we can change this to 25, 15, 100. And you can see that the ambient occlusion is still staying where it is. Now, the reason why this works is because when it comes to materials, you need to think about them in terms of numbers. I know math is not something that you really want to think about, especially when you have such a nice visual editor like this. But what it comes down to is every color is basically a value between 0 and 1. You have red, green, and blue as your basic default three colors that we use for computer graphics. However, in reality, they are simply a value that goes from 0, which is black, to 1, which is white. And so if you think of each of these channels as nothing more than a color value that goes between 0 and 1, then what it comes down to is you have grayscale. And what we're doing is we're actually taking all of the blacks, which are zeros, and all of the whites, which are ones, and multiplying them by this texture, which is a series of colors that are in between 0 and 1. So what it's really doing is all of the values that are white, which are 1, are being times by all the values that are brighter in here as well, which are 1, which means that whatever the color value is when it's coming from here into this multiply node is going to stay the way it is. Now, when we start getting gray values that are less than, it's actually a value that's less than 1. And so when those values end up multiplying upon a color, what they're doing is they're making them darker because they're lowering their brightness value from wherever it was between the 0 and 1 range to a lower value based off of multiply. So if I had half gray times a pure white color here, well, 0.5 times 1 ends up giving you half of 1. So what we're getting is this black value is going to be multiplying against this, giving you nothing more than pure black, basically, or a darker value in this sense. So that is pretty much the basics of dual diffuse. There's plenty of other things you can do with this, but really it comes in handy a lot for ambient occlusion maps and other things that you want to multiply across a surface and actually have it retain its shape if you're using a unique map, and then at the same time you have the power and benefit of tiling maps.